Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Get softer, smoother, and more even-toned skin after just one use with the new Gentle Exfoliating line from Cetaphil. Formulated with a unique triple acid blend that promotes surface skin cell renewal, these gentle chemical exfoliators remove dead skin cells and refine skin's texture while hydrating, resulting in softer, smoother, more even-looking skin. Shop the new Cetaphil Gentle Exfoliating line in the face and body aisles at your local Target store or online at Cetaphil.com.
We're back for another week of the Coach and Coordinator, D3 Coordinators and Coach of the Week. Joining me, as he does every week after coming up with the analytics behind who we're picking each week, is Logan Hanson of Hansen Ratings. So Logan, it's been a fun season so far. We just hit week 5 of 11. Things are flying by.
I know. I mean, it's basically the midpoint of the season right now. Teams are getting into the nitty-gritty of their conference schedule, and we're seeing, even early in the season, some top teams in conferences across the country playing for their playoff lives. So never a dull week in D3.
No, never. Now, before we get into this week, I would just love to check in with you on how the model's holding up as you look back at some of the things you predicted preseason to where they're at right now. Any things that are confirmed and any surprises?
Well, I know one thing that I was kind of worried about early in the year with my model was how high it had River Falls ranked. They were in the top 5 in the preseason after finishing 7-3 a year ago. But so far, they look like they're due to be one of the top teams in the Wisconsin Conference. Played and improved UW-Eau Claire last week, and they got our coaching staff of the week. So they're looking great. Another one staying in the WIAC was UW-Platteville, who was pretty high in my model, and they were unranked in both polls preseason, and they just had a big upset win over La Crosse. Elsewhere, Mary Hardin-Baylor was in the top 25 of my model, and, they're climbing up. Couple things that I kind of missed on was, I had Elma really high in the model preseason, and, they haven't been having as good of a season after beating Mount Union last year, but they're still a quality team. It's still going to be a tough out for anybody they play, but things are looking pretty good with the model so far.
Yeah, I know in talking to Brent Allen at Platteville, one of our coordinators of the week, they're going to have a big challenge with River Falls this week. So it's always interesting to see these matchups. But I like, too, that, we're going to be talking to coaches throughout the season who don't necessarily always show up on the top 25, kind of the design behind this when I asked you to put something together. And I think I love that part the best is we just get to know more of these coaches and programs and what they're doing around the country.
Yeah, definitely. We've talked about it every single week. Usually at least one or maybe 2 of these coaches of the week is going to come from a team that's probably not receiving any votes in the top 25 poll, but the coaches are doing a great job, and they're improving their team every single week, and that's something worth celebrating.
Well, you mentioned UW-Platteville, and our D3 offensive coordinator of the week is Brent Allen. Tell us about what Brent and his staff did this week.
So this week, UW-Platteville played the top-rated defense in the country, according to my model, UW-La Crosse. They did go into overtime, but still ended up scoring 30 points against La Crosse this week. I think a lot of people have probably already seen the play, but in overtime, first play, they pulled out a double pass for the winning touchdown. Other than that, they had 7.1 yards per play. UWL had not allowed that much in any of their previous 3 games, and that includes 2 games against Division II opponents. Platteville had over 350 yards passing, and something that Platteville always does a great job with. They're a team that likes to throw the ball as much as they can if teams are going to allow it, and they had 44 dropbacks, 0 sacks allowed against La Crosse's defense, which is just an outstanding performance up front. They were led by really great individual performances. Brent had over 150 yards receiving, and he is the guy who threw the touchdown on the winning pass. They had multiple plays of over 40 yards in the fourth quarter to come back and tie that game and force overtime. So, they did it with an outstanding day passing, a great comeback win, multiple long touchdown passes, and doing it against the best defense in the country is what earned Platteville and the Pioneers the Offensive Coaching Staff of the Week.
Well, let's hear from Brent Allen, offensive coordinator at the University of Platteville. We're here with our offensive coordinator of the week from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Brent Allen. He's in his third season and doing a great job there. Brent, congratulations to you and your staff on being named our D3 offensive coordinator of the week.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to have us on today, and I want to thank Coach Ryan Munns for being a great leader of our program and putting us in a great spot, and some of my assistants, Coach Bailey, Arnold, Allender, Hoff, and Reese. Those guys do a phenomenal job and make it a lot easier for us to do what we do on Saturdays.
Coach, we're going to dig into something that you do that you frame up as teach, challenge, and encourage, in a way that you guys really get to buy into your system where everybody is participating. Everybody ends up participating in that teach part. You're responsible for not only yourself, but your teammates as well. So we'd love to hear, one, how this philosophy came about, and two, exactly what it is to you.
Yeah, so the teach, challenge, and encourage, I would be remiss if I didn't give credit from where I learned, and that was Coach Bullis back in the day at UW-Whitewater, which is hard to say out loud when we have the opportunity to talk about UW-Platteville, but I would have to give credit to him for that and being able to take it and kind of get our own now and use it for the advantage of our guys. And I think the most important thing when you're talking about it is once you get the guys to buy into the teach, challenge, and encourage mindset, you start to see your meeting room, your individual drills turn into having a whole bunch of coaches, right? At the end of the day, Coach Reese and myself are the ones doing the individual drills with the offensive line, and being able to have a bunch of different sets of eyes. Usually it starts with the older guys, but coaching up guys on hand placement and driving their second leg and all the little things that are hard to miss with only 2 sets of eyes is really important. And when the guys buy into it, you end up creating a whole bunch of coaches. And with anything, when you're teaching, you have to be a master of it to actually be able to teach somebody. So it really encourages guys picking it up as fast as possible, and then also being able to be coached by a peer. And there's no bad blood when that happens. It just makes us a lot better at position group and then in the group as well.
The challenge in doing this and taking things from what traditionally might be like a top-down approach, and you have that coach who really drives everything, to something that is more peer-to-peer, is to teach guys how to do that and to allow, as the guy at the top, to allow and create the environment for that to happen. And I think we can want that, but actually getting it to execution is the challenge. So how were you able to do that, especially early on as you adopted this?
Yeah, so the easiest one is the teaching, even though it does take a little bit of work on the player's end of picking up what we're trying to do so that they can teach appropriately. But guys want to get better at the game of football, so allowing them to help each other out creates a great starting culture for this. Obviously, as you kind of go through it, the teach, challenge, and the one that becomes difficult is the challenge, right? You're talking about 18 to 22-year-old men challenging each other. Teaching's one thing, right? Everyone's trying to get better, but then actually being able to say, hey, no, this is not how we do it, and this is not appropriate, is the one that's really tough. So the way we encourage all of it is just really bringing it up in front of the guys as much as possible so that they get more and more comfortable. And then you got to highlight the good moments of it, right? And sometimes the bad moments too. Being able to say, hey, we noticed so-and-so teaching up in this 7-on-7 drill or in this indie drill or whatever it might be. And we say that in front of the entire group. And anytime you highlight something like that, it fosters more of it. So the teach part is the easy one once the guys understand what we're trying to do. And then the challenge one's tough. And we lean into the challenge one a lot because inevitably that's going to be the harder conversation. And we're really focused on trying to have a 6-inch conversation when we're challenging peer-to-peer. It's not something that you're yelling across the field, hey, that route's got to be at this depth. More of a, hey, go over, calm your voice down a little bit, take your emotions out of it, but like, hey, that's not what we do here, and this is what we do, and turn it into a teaching moment and without the emotions.
Yeah, I love that part, because my question to you was going to be, when you look at just human nature, when things are coming back to you as being critical of how you did it, the first reaction is to defend or to make excuses or to offer explanations instead of opening your ears and listening. And I love those coaching points that you give there about having the 6-inch conversation and approaching it that way. Because I think the other way, where you just start to feel singled out, you have the wrong reaction, and that person sitting there who heard it isn't actually learning. They're coming up with those reasons and maybe in their mind defending themselves instead of being open to what they need to take in to get better.
Yeah, we talk with the challenging thing. If it's not done appropriately, the young man who's being challenged has really two different things he can do. He can either throw his hands up in the air and kind of get into almost a fight mentality, or he can put his tail between his legs. And neither of those are good for inevitably the goal, which is teaching and becoming a better football team and football player. So being able to have those constructive criticism conversations in the right setting with the right tone is something that we work on a lot and talk about a lot. And we've gotten a lot better in our time here together, and can highlight a situation from the past where, a quarterback yelled across the field at a wide receiver, and then wide receiver spiked his helmet. And it's like, okay, this isn't it. So use that as a teachable moment, and together, the whole staff has been able to get this message across. And now we're starting to see in year 3 here, guys really do a great job of it, where I'm going to encourage you to come out to an individual drill, really any position group, but, line specifically. And, we're just doing a drill on the boards and everybody's coaching it up. And it's really pretty exciting to see. And then you start to get guys all in line and go in the same direction and understanding what we're trying to do.
Have you faced any challenges in trying to get maybe a more introverted type of player out of his shell? I know as I've over the years tried to teach vocal leadership, which a lot of this is vocal leadership too, you would have those guys lean back on, well, I'm more of a leader by example. Well, that's awesome, because if we have all leaders by example, it means everybody's doing their job. Great. But for those guys who aren't, just the leadership by example doesn't do what you're saying here, the teach, challenge, encourage. So any tips on, I guess, getting that player to come out of his shell a little bit and lead and teach in these situations?
Yeah, I think that's the nice part about having the teaching and challenging. And I can talk about the encouragement part, because that's pretty easy at the end or whenever you want. But the teaching and challenging is definitely the harder of the three. When you have the introvert, you've got to teach them that teaching is where you start, because it's the easier one to do. You're just passing along information. And that starts to get them more comfortable in a verbal leadership role until they kind of graduate on to being able to challenge guys. And I think a lot of times when the introvert and the kind of the quiet type lead by example guys, they start teaching, and because they do enjoy passing on information once they start to feel comfortable with it. I think that also kind of unlocks the door to being able to challenge guys. And sometimes the introverts are actually the best challengers, because the 6-inch conversation is what they want to have anyways. They're not the ones who want to make a big vocal thing at practice or in the meeting room. So you kind of actually need those guys to be a good role model of how the system works, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think the encouragement part, which you mentioned here, is important too, because there's a right way to do that as well. And an example I like to point to, this is something I always did with my son as he was growing up, and I would make sure that my encouragement back to him was detailed as well. But, I'd always make him, when he got in a car after a practice, how did practice go? Good. I'm like, nope, that's not going to work. That's not enough. Like, good job. It's okay. It's a positive, but I think the detail in it and how you encourage is just important as well. We'd love to hear about how you guys do that.
Yeah, I think the encouragement part is the one that we talk about. It should come the easiest, right? And obviously everyone likes to celebrate touchdowns, right? That's easy. Big plays, that one's easy. But sometimes it's the little things that go unnoticed. So-and-so hasn't run that route appropriately yet. So let's give him a high five when he comes back to the huddle. Hey, that was it. We got it. Just being able to encourage the big victories, obviously scoring touchdowns, but also being able to encourage just the little things. And, as this football season goes, right, everyone's really excited the first week of camp to play football again. But, are you still as excited week 2 of camp or week 3 of camp? And when things get a little hotter and things get a little drawn out, are you still willing to go down the field and give a guy a high five for a good catch or a touchdown or whatever it might be? And we just really want to never forget about celebrating each other's accomplishments. And that ends up creating a great culture amongst your group because you have guys' backs. Coach Munz talks a lot about team touches, which is essentially just being able to give each other knucks and high fives. And there's a study with the NBA, and I believe it was the Golden State Warriors, and how they had a whole bunch of the most team touches. Actually, it might have been the Suns, to be honest. It might go a little further back. And they inevitably ended up winning a championship with the most touches and just encouraging each other. Now, you might have to fact check, honestly, all of the basketball stuff because that's not my deal. But the goal is being around each other and making sure see each other and congratulate each other.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of studies around that. And I think back to, I believe, Tommy Watts, who's now the head coach at Ohio Wesleyan, when he was our defensive backs coach, just at the end of every practice, he would bring his defensive backs together. And instead of having them take a knee, those guys got in a circle with their arms around each other. And again, it was just that part of it, get connected with your guys. So whether it's those, like you said, the knuckles or the high fives, all those things I think are important. And definitely when you look at the encouragement side, there's a lot. You can always coach into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just sometimes you don't exactly know what to say after a practice. And if you can find a couple examples of someone teaching, challenging, or encouraging the right way, it makes it really easy to continue to grow that culture and kind of grow the room and grow the team, to be completely honest.
Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time, sharing some of the ideas with us here. Definitely those can be incorporated right now in season. And again, congratulations to you and your staff on being named our Offensive Coordinator of the Week. Best of luck to you and the Pioneers the rest of the way here in 2024.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. A great opportunity.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
All right, our next honoree this week is our Defensive Coordinator of the Week. Tell us about our Defense and Defensive Coordinator of the Week.
This week, that honor goes to Rochester from the Liberty League, who beat RTI 14-7. Earlier, we talked about, my model and things that it had seen coming and things it didn't. One thing that it did not see coming was Rochester this year. Rochester is undefeated. They are having one of the best starts in their program's history, and they did it against an RPI team that, coming into the week, my model thought was still the favorite to win the Liberty League. And doing it, only allowing one touchdown, outstanding. They only allowed 22 rushing yards on less than 1 yard per rush, forced 3 turnovers, including a game-winning interception deep in their own territory at the end of the game. Another thing that we've talked about a few times on the podcast here is havoc plays. And Rochester not only did a great job efficiency-wise against RPI, but they created those havoc plays at an outstanding rate. So they had 14 havoc plays. That's your TFLs, your sacks, pass breakups, interceptions. They had 14, but they only did it on 58 offensive snaps. That means that they were causing havoc on about 1/4 of RPI's offensive plays. And, if you can keep teams under a low average and then have those havoc plays mixed into, you're going to have a good day defensively.
Well, let's hear from Chris Sapp, Defensive Coordinator at Rochester. Our D3 Defensive Coordinator of the Week is Chris Sapp, at the University of Rochester. Coach, great to have you here on the podcast, and congratulations on being named our D3 Defensive Coordinator of the Week.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the honor, and thank you for having me on.
Coach, this is always a collective effort. I want to make sure you get the opportunity to mention and talk about those guys you have involved in this process.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, our head coach, Coach Chad Martinovich, who allows me to call the defense and run the defense how I see fit, and, supports me and with the players. And then obviously this one piece of the puzzle with the defensive staff, with my D-line coach, Jason Henshaw, who helps a lot with the run game stuff. And then Coach Vaughn Nichols, our linebackers coach. And then Coach Benham, who recently retired head high school coach up here in New York, is now kind of volunteering and helping a lot on the back end with me and the DBs. That gives me a lot of flexibility and fluidity during practice to do a lot of different things. So without those three guys too, really, that's not possible to where we've been and where we're at right now.
Because we're going to get into the details of how you guys do it. And for you, it starts with having some objectives, having some goals for the week that you want your guys to accomplish. And we'll get into some other things like what you guys do in practice to emphasize those and really the situations you put your guys into. But starting with that, what are the objectives you have your guys focused on each week?
Yeah, so we started with preseason camp and how we go, and we put it into our defensive philosophy playbook, and we reiterate it every week when we do our game planning, and then even in our position meetings. Number one is on defense, you got to stop the run. If you can't stop the run, you're going to put yourself in bad positions and allow the offense to move the chains. Within that, we have a first down efficiency goal that we want to keep the offense under 4 yards on first down, so 3 yards or less. And, that's a weekly goal. If we can do that 50% of the time in a game, we're going to put ourselves in a position to make plays on defense. Number two, that kind of follows up with that, is don't give up the big play, right? And we track that in practice and we track it in games. We don't want to give any runs longer than 10 yards or any pass plays longer than 15 yards. So that's, again, as we're grading in practice and looking at it, we're keeping track of that and reiterating it with the guys. Then also from the previous game. And then even as we get into the scouting report, we talk about the X play numbers that the teams have that we're going against each week that they have and how they're sustaining drives or scoring touchdowns. So that keeping that in the mindset with our guys and how they can eliminate those. And then, we talk about being the first down efficiency and then not giving up the big play. And then we want to get off the field on third down. So put them in third and long where we can do what we do as a defense and what we want to do from week to week. But as long as we're getting off the field at a high rate, I think right now we're at a 28% conversion rate for offenses on us. So that's pretty good. And we say over 50% of the time that we want to be able to get off the field on third down. And we're exceeding that at this point, which is nice. And then dominate the red zone. I think if you make it hard for teams to score in the red zone, that goes a long way, right? If they don't score, they can't win. And that's kind of our mindset. And that's really grown this year from preseason camp and on, and it's showing up on the field with our red zone defensive efficiency. And we're getting off the field or turning over on downs or getting teams to miss field goals or blocking extra points too if they do score. And it's something that the guys, they know it from the jump and what we want to do and how we're going to execute it. And really down there too is about keeping it simple so that the guys can just play fast, line up, know what the formation is, get the call, and just go. And then overall, we want to get 3 takeaways again. Right? And we call it ring the bell on our side of the ball. And something we started here in 2018 when we got here as a new staff at University of Rochester, and it's carried on. And we're really ringing the bell right now. I think we got 14 takeaways on the year with 11 interceptions, and our guys have really bought in. And that's something we track in practice. That's our goal every day. We go to practice. We want to get 3 takeaways. We count and mark down punch and strip attempts too, and the team stuff, and then how we're getting our hands on the balls and if they're missed opportunities or not. Because I think if you have a missed opportunity for a takeaway and the offense ends up making a play off that, their chances of scoring increases by 20%. So it's something that we've tracked and our guys are successful. So that's like a weekly goal and checklist that we want to do week in and week out, day in and day out to make us successful on game day.
So with the ring the bell, do you guys have anything you do on the sidelines when you get those turnovers?
Yeah, so we actually I built a bell. We have one that we bring out to practice every day. It's like our practice bell. And then we have one that go to Home Depot, cut some wood up, ordered a bell and put it on. And then we get a takeaway. They run off the field and they ring it. And then we have these honeycomb stickers on the post side of the post for each takeaway we get. right now. It's filling up fast, and hopefully we can keep it rolling.
Very cool. I think those kinds of things, though, maybe they seem gimmicky to the people on the outside. They definitely become motivational, and you bring it into practice too. You're putting that focus on it in practice.
Yep, you practice how you play.
So let's talk a little bit about the practice. You have these game goals. You mentioned you're going to track those throughout practice, which helps you emphasize it. Are there any other things you're building into your practice or the way that you do things that emphasize attaining those goals?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do, and every Tuesday when we start practice, once we get through our flex and I call our buzz session of our walkthrough, and we get to our defensive group work, before we even get to Indy, we do a TNT circuit, so tackle and takeaways. So it's a 3-station circuit with the defense. Takes about 10 to 12 minutes that we'll go through. We'll do a tackle station where they're working on form tackling and technique. A takeaway station where we're looking to work on takeaways depending on a different level at each level and how they can attain those. And then a blitz station, which where we're working on blitz technique or even tackle technique or just different situations that we might put in that week. So we do it the 3 circuit through and we rep it. And we get each player gets about 2 reps at each station, and then we rotate it through. So that's even before we get to our individual, where we then build on our stance and start and then our fundamentals throughout, and just constantly reiterating, playing with posture, finding the ball, making sure we're talking. One of the things that we talk about is over communicate and under assume. So just making sure that we're over communicating, under assuming, and let's go.
So as the course of the season wears on, you do those circuits all the time. You want to make sure that it never becomes something that loses maybe that enthusiasm that I had towards the beginning of the year. How do you keep that fresh? How do you keep that focus going? Because obviously that's an important part of what you do. And you mentioned just knowing the analytics behind it. It's going to help you win ball games.
Yeah, I mean, we have different drills that will work, and so it doesn't get stagnant. But then also, too, one of the things is like Coach Henshaw, our D-line coach, he loves music, too. So he has his little JBL speaker out on the field on the defensive side of the ball. So the music is cranking. The guys are getting pumped up, and they just know, all right, let's flip that switch. Let's start to get that game day mentality with the music playing in pregame or throughout the game, and let's go through our drills that we need to do. And the guys have fun, and, you know, it's got to a point where the guys will coach each other up if they're not doing it right, which is nice, especially when the older guys start teaching the younger guys or critiquing them, hey, you could have done this, instead of always coming from us as a staff, which is good to hear.
You mentioned third down, and certainly that's a critical down for both sides of the ball. You want to win that one, get off the field. Again, what's the focus in practice? What types of things do you do that you really feel enhances your ability to perform on third down on game day?
Yes, what we do. So Tuesdays is our first and third down emphasis, right? So again, goes back to that stopping the run, winning first down efficiency, and then getting off the field on third down. So a lot of the calls and how we do, whether we're in Skelly and team, and then even our inside, when we're emphasizing stopping the run, we have the safeties at the inside run as well within that. So that kind of starts with, let's stop their top runs. This is what we're going to see. This is how we got to prepare for it. This is their top formations with their top runs. Let's really focus and zero on that. And Skelly and team, it's alternating first down and then third down. What they're running, what we're doing, we can attack them and exploit them. And then again, that goes back to tracking. Are we winning those first down reps? And then again, are we getting off the field on those third down reps? So then we're tracking it when we're watching that film as the staff later that night.
So we all want to see those checks on the board or the decals or whatever we put up there. What's your approach when one of those goals isn't hit in a week? How do you make sure that there's a focus or you get back on track during that next week?
Yeah, so it's like if we need to overemphasize something or if we see, and we have, so Coach Martinovich, we have a complete big team board where it's even mirrored on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball too. So it's first down efficiency, both for offense and defense, third down for offense and defense, big plays, offense, defense. That's one. Do we win the big play box in the game? And then with special teams, are we winning special teams and field position? Then red zone for offense to defensively, the turnover margin, are we doing that? And then we have an offensive points and defensive points. So it's literally, we track it, and on Monday when we have our team meetings to go over the previous game and start going, it's on a board black and white, and it's in the locker room so the guys know and how we prepare, and that's a mindset. So if we feel like after watching the film and that we got no's that we didn't get that, well, what led to that, and then how can we improve to make sure that next week that we get that yes on that box or in that board, so we can. And so it's 11 different yes/no marks, and we've kind of found that the formula is if you get 7 of those 11, you're usually going to win the football game.
Coach, I really appreciate you taking some time here during a busy week to share some ideas with us. And again, congratulations to you and your staff as being recognized as the Hansen Ratings D3 Defensive Coordinator of the Week. And best of luck to you and the Yellow Jackets the rest of 2024. To finish up this week, we recognize our head coach and staff of the week. Logan, who do we have this week?
This week, that honor goes to first-year head coach Mike McElroy of Bethel, who defeated Gustavus Adolphus 43-0. This was a rematch of last year's MIAC title game, and Bethel dominated. They've had a couple rough games there in the early going, and this was definitely a get-right game for them. They only allowed 5 first downs. According to the NCAA stats, that's negative 24 rushing yards allowed, but throw in 9 sacks for 58 yards, and that's how you get the negative yardage. They also allowed less than 100 yards passing. They intercepted the Gusties 3 times, and then offensively, they absolutely dominated time of possession. They had 35 minutes to Gustavus's 25 minutes, and the way they did it was by the traditional 4 yards in a cloud of dust. They had 85 plays on offense and came up just 1 yard short of 400 yards. And they did a great job on their 3rd and 4th down conversions. They attempted 6 4th down conversions, converted 5 of them. So if you're just playing keep away from the other team and not letting them get anything going through the air, on the ground, and just consistently picking up first downs, that's a great recipe for a big win. So congrats to the Bethel Royals on earning our coaching staff of the week.
Let's talk to head coach Mike McElroy. Right now, we're going to talk to our D3 head coach of the week. And of course, anytime we recognize the head coach, we want to make sure we honor that staff as well, because he's done a great job bringing those guys together. And that's the head coach at Bethel, Mike McElroy. Mike, it's great to have you here on the podcast, and congratulations to you and your staff on being named our Hansen Ratings D3 head coach and staff of the week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for all you guys do for D3 football. It's been fun to follow.
Coach, I want to make sure before we get into some of the ideas we're going to talk about here today that we give recognition to the staff. We have made this, obviously we recognize the head coach, but we've made this a staff award as well.
Yeah, as it should be, and super grateful for our guys and the work they put in. We've got 4 full-time guys here in the building alongside me, our offensive coordinator, Colin Dewing, Kyle Kilgore, who works with our front, Tavian Swanson, who works with our corners, and Matthias Drury, who works with our O-line. And then we've got a handful of other stipend guys who just do an awesome job of kind of piecing things together here through the week. You know, D3, you're kind of wearing a lot of different hats. And so those guys do an awesome job of juggling stuff while also getting our guys prepared through the week.
Yeah, we've had Colin on here recently in our season series. I'll make sure we link that one in our show notes. And you mentioned wearing multiple hats. And for you, a guy who is taking over 2024 first year as the head coach, before that, you've been the defensive coordinator, and you're still wearing that hat. And that always presents a challenge to be able to do both of those kinds of things. It certainly is common in high school and in small college ball. But at the same time, your main thing is to oversee the entire program, to make sure on game day you guys are playing complementary football. So there's a lot that goes into that too, and a lot more you need to think about now that you are wearing that head coach hat. We'd love to hear just your overall philosophy on how you manage that.
Yeah, it has definitely been a whirlwind. I think trying to keep my head above water here for the first few weeks has been my biggest goal. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned in that, even being under Coach Jay, who was here for 35 years and a Hall of Fame type coach, of surrounding yourself with great people is a big deal. And so we found a bunch of guys that we can trust to kind of do their job and do it really well and really let those guys go. I think that's what I learned from him was, man, I had so much freedom on when I was just the defensive coordinator, just as far as being able to kind of do what I wanted to do, as long as it really aligned with what his vision was for the program. And we found that, and you mentioned in Coach Julian, just the way he is so prepared. I mean, that guy is like a head coach and he's going to be a great head coach someday, but man, he's so prepared. I can just let those guys go. Like we'll chat a couple of times throughout the week as far as what he's thinking and what we're thinking, but it's fun. That offensive side just owns it. And then that really allows me to kind of get with our staff on the defensive side and go, we've got 2 young guys. We might have the youngest full-time staff in the country. I think I'm the oldest guy at 36, and we got a bunch of these young guys that are just kind of young, scrappy guys that love to learn and just get after. And so it's been fun to bring the young guys on the defensive side along. I get to give them a lot more responsibility than I gave them last year. And so those guys have really taken ownership of that. But it's important. You got to be really simple so that you can do stuff, because there's just so much stuff going on throughout the week, and our guys are so distracted with school and social life and all that comes with that. I think it's the call to be really simple and really good teachers is what we've kind of landed on.
And a lot of that being simple certainly is an important thing, but you still need the details that go along with it. And that really goes down to organization and structure. And especially for you, again, wearing multiple hats, being the defensive coordinator, being the head coach, the structure of the week is important. How do you guys approach that? What is your structure for the week?
Yeah, we've had to kind of rethink and overhaul. When I took over, we kind of just did this experiment with like, hey, nothing here is sacred. Like, what do we need to do to be the best we can be and the most prepared we need to be on Saturday? And so our guys have Sunday off. Our coaches have Sunday off. We don't come into the office. Everything is done. We have a really cool set of just like our offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. We have a set of questions for every opponent that we go through. And so guys on their own, whether you're a stipend guy or whether you're a full-time guy, you've got about 5 to 6 questions that you're going to answer about the opponent just from us. So it's Sunday night. We get those in by Monday morning, and then Monday is off for our guys as well. We'll do a lift on a Monday morning and then a team meeting on a Monday afternoon. But Monday for us is a heavy game plan day. And again, we found that we used to practice on Mondays and you'd have all your starters would be kind of limping out there and dinged up. And so it wasn't very fruitful. And so for us, we really got to give our guys 2 days off just to kind of get their bodies back and get their mental state back to where they can come in fresh and ready to roll. And then so Monday is a game plan deal. And then Tuesday morning, our game plan will go out to our guys and we will run a walkthrough on Tuesday afternoon. It will be really short, about an hour. And then we'll go Wednesday and Thursday will be a little heavier practices, but we're still only going for about an hour and a half and then a walkthrough on Friday. And the hope of that is now we want to be the freshest team on Saturday. We want our guys to really play fast. We want them to really know what they're doing. We spend a ton of time at walkthroughs. We don't have a ton of guys on our roster. So, having full scout teams and going live in scouts doesn't really do it for us. And so for us, we've really landed on this idea of like, man, I want our guys to be really well prepared, to know what to do, and then to be really fresh on game day. And so far it's been a fruitful experiment as we go and continue to make tweaks and changes as we roll through this year.
So for our listeners, so they understand the size of your roster, because those certainly do vary from school to school, conference to conference. I coached in the OAC where 100 plus was the norm, and also coached at Oberlin College where you're scrapping every year to get 50 guys into the school. Yeah. So certainly presents challenges. What does your roster look like?
Yeah, we're right about 100. So right about 100 this year. And again, I think the challenge is always like, how do you keep scout guys healthy and how do you give good looks? One thing that we've gotten to even from the defensive side of the ball is our run fits are all at walkthrough tempo. It's like we used to do it where you've got your starting varsity D linemen are just offensive linemen are getting blown, the scout offensive linemen are getting blown off the ball, or like, man, everybody's making a tackle in the backfield. And so now like our run fit session is completely walkthrough so that we can see fits, we can see pullers, we can understand how things work, how we layer the fits on the back end. So that's been something that's been really fruitful for us of like, man, we don't have 70 O linemen in our team right now. And so it's like, how do you manage having less of? And I think for us, the call has been, and let's just be really sharp in how we teach. Let's be really sharp in how we understand the defense and how things fit off of each other.
So going back to something you mentioned before, the questions that everybody is answering. So those guys, however you might break those up, they have those questions to answer. How does that come back? Are those guys presenting on it? Are they putting together a report? Is there film tied to it? What's the best practice, I guess, in doing a format like that?
Yeah, I think what's been good for us is like, man, I think coaches, I've been at all levels, and I think coaches waste a lot of time on things that don't win ball games, right? So it's like, we don't make presentations. I don't need a PowerPoint. I don't need a bunch of slides. We literally will meet about those questions every Monday morning. It's kind of the first thing we do. And we zoom in. We've got a bunch of our guys are teaching districts, and so we do it before those guys start school. And really they're tagging, hey, this clip number, we saw this. And it's simple stuff, but it's stuff that saves me time of like, hey, Wildcat quarterback, who is it? Hey, who's the offensive lineman we want to attack? And then what are some clips that you've seen that show that? Is there a jet motion, guys? It's these simple questions that really is just trying to save me time as kind of building a game plan and things that I don't have to think about during the week or have to go find of like, oh man, when they run two back, are they running it more to this guy or to this guy? And so for us, it's like hopefully a time saver and a thing that takes one more thing off of our guys' plate, and that it gives those guys some ownership of things that they can do and look for during the week and then really become experts on, so that when we do get into a game plan meeting, they can kind of pipe up and go, hey, remember this formation, there's a tell, remember, hey, they're 100% pass when they align like this. So really it's something that's simple that we can just refer back to, but it's really not a lot of extra work if those guys get to become experts at those things.
So we talked about just the overall structure and hiring people you can trust. And obviously Colin's done an excellent job on the offensive side of the ball, and you can trust him with what he's doing. When you get into the game day part of it and you're running the defensive side, he's running the offensive side, you got special teams going as well, there's still those game day decisions that have to be made. How are you making sure that those are being handled? How do you manage the overall game plan, the overall structure, what's happening on game day, decisions that have to be made as far as go for it or punt, things that might be going on as maybe adjustments need to be made on the sidelines?
Yeah, I think that is the $1 million question. There's not a perfect way to do it, and every game is going to be so different. So I think for us, it's building in adaptability and how we game plan. We'd love to sit into a meeting on a Thursday and go, hey, if this happens, we're going to do this. But so much depends, I think, on the flow of the game and how our guys playing, how are we feeling. So I think part of that is like, man, in-game communication of like, man, how do we feel, trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, which has been a little bit of a challenge. Like I can't go back and coach safeties here. I can't go back and coach the safeties because I got to be up next to the offense when those guys are going to decide if, hey, we got 4 downs here. Do we got 2? We want to punt? Like, what do we want to do? And so I think a lot of that has just been, like you talked about earlier, the organization piece is a big deal. And then having a plan for the fact that you're probably not going to have a perfect plan, and really just kind of getting a feel as we go and just being in communication with our coaches of what do we think? What do we feel? Because again, I think to have this perfect plan laid out probably gets you in more trouble than it does good for you. It's because I think you get so rigid and tied to it. We want to be able to be adaptive, and we ask our guys to do that. So it's like we want to do that as coaches as well.
Coach, I appreciate you taking the time here during the week and sharing some ideas with us. Again, congratulations to you and your staff as being recognized by Hansen Ratings as our head coach and staff of the week, and best of luck to you and the Royals the rest of the way.
Awesome. Thanks for all you guys do.
Logan, another great group of coaches. Again, as I said, it's fun to meet these coaches from around the country. Maybe not, the usual suspects, but at this level, I think there's just outstanding coaching across the country, and really happy that we're able to highlight that as well as D3 football.
Me too. And, I've said it a couple times on here before, but a lot of these coaches are guys who I've always been curious, man, what are they doing in their program that they're so consistently performing? And then when you see a team like Rochester this year who comes seemingly out of nowhere and starts a 5-0 start, that out of nowhere, we all know that that's not truly out of nowhere. They've been doing things behind the scenes in the previous years leading up to this, doing things in their off season that led to the success. So it's great to hear from them and what they do in their programs to turn things around.
We'll be back again next week with our winners. Be sure that you check out coachingcoordinator.com. We write an article each week on the coach that we feature. So 3 articles each week on some of the things that they're doing and put the highlights on their program. Be sure to check out our partners, Vertical Raise, for your fundraising needs, Modern Football Technology for analytics and in-game decision-making, and Signature Championship Rings when you win the championship this year. Links and information to all of our partners can be found in the description and on coachingcoordinator.com in our 10% toolkit. Follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.